Maybe it's a surprise when you walk into the bathroom and you're like, oh, it's that time of the month again. You throw in a pad and you get on your way. You don't really know when it comes or when it goes. Or maybe you're that person that is so in tune with your body, you know exactly when your period is coming, you know exactly when it's supposed to leave. But either way, I bet you have some questions about your period, and I'm hoping to answer those in this video today. Everybody, I'm Dr. Nicole. Welcome back to my channel and one of my favorite days of the week, TMI Tuesday, where we get to talk about everything from periods, poop, intercourse, and everything in between. But if I'm being honest, we pretty much talk about those things all the time. Either way, today will be an especially TMI type of day, and I am so glad you're here with me. You may be wondering, why does my poop do such weird things when I'm on my period? Like, there is enough chaos going on during this time of the month.
Wait, what do you mean? What do you mean? Can someone explain to me? I'm very confused.
Rest assured, this is something very normal, and it has to do with two giant P words, and neither of them are poop. It has to do with prostaglandins and progesterone. Prostaglandins' jobs during your period is to make your uterus contract. With your uterus contracting, it's able to shed the entire inner lining of the uterus. The reason we want to do this is because no egg has attached during this month's cycle, and it wants a fresh lining if you were to want to get pregnant and have an egg attached to your uterus wall in the next cycle. I mean, I don't know about you, but having my uterus lining just sitting and chilling in there for like 10 years does not seem like a good idea. Unfortunately, when these prostaglandins come into our body and cause our uterus to contract, they also cause our digestive system and our bowels to contract. And when this contracting happens, you may experience diarrhea and you may experience constipation. Those people that experience diarrhea, it's likely because your body is storing up and holding on to a lot more water, which tends to make our poop a little more runny and on the diarrhea side. The other reason that you might notice changes in your poop is because of progesterone. Because there are high levels of progesterone in our body around the time of our period, many people that have something like Crohn's, they have ovarian cysts, they have endometriosis, something that is already affecting the way that their bowels work, are more likely to experience something like constipation or diarrhea during their menstrual cycle. As a bonus tip here, drinking coffee actually can increase your likelihood of experiencing these period poops. So if you can go without coffee during menstruation, it's definitely going to help decrease the likelihood of weird poop things happening while you're on your period. Number 2, what is up with all the cramping?
Stop this madness. What do you want from me? What do you want? Please!
So those things I just mentioned that make us have to poop a lot, those prostaglandins, they actually cause contracting of the uterus, like I said, to get rid of that lining. And when they do, they can cause that cramping or abdominal pain sensation that we experience during our periods. The other factor is the thickness of our uterine lining. So within our uterus, that lining can either be thin or thick, and it all has to do with the amount of hormones within our body while that lining is being created. For people with high amounts of estrogen in their body, they have a thicker lining, and that uterus is really going to have to contract hard to get rid of that whole uterus lining. So obviously that is going to make us feel some more intense cramping. I think it's really important to note that cramping is very common during our periods. However, often it is our bodies telling us that something with our hormone levels aren't just quite right. So if you're newly getting your period, it's likely you're experiencing more intense cramping because your body's hormone levels are trying to figure out what they're supposed to be doing, what is going on, what is normal. But if you've had your period for several years and you're still experiencing intense cramping, it's probably a good time to talk to your provider or a professional that really can help look at what are your hormone levels. Maybe there's a way with diet and lifestyle changes that you can actually find some balance and experience a lot less cramping during your period. You know when you go into the bathroom and you notice those huge clots? It's probably on the first couple days of your period and you're like, what in the world? Is that supposed to be happening, and why is it happening? It is very normal, especially on those first couple days of your period. The reason that this happens is because that uterine lining that your body is shedding is coming out of your body. During menstruation, our body sends anticoagulants. That's just a giant word for something in our body that is supposed to make blood thinner instead of thick. So instead of our blood being like thick honey or maple syrup, it's supposed to be more like water consistency. So during our period, our body sends a bunch of anticoagulants to our uterus, to that lining as it's breaking down. But sometimes our body is getting rid of that lining so fast, it's such a heavy flow that the anticoagulants don't have time to do their job and really thin out that blood. And so we see see some bigger clots coming out. This is perfectly normal, nothing to be concerned about, especially if it's in those first couple days of your period. It's just saying that your uterus lining is shedding faster than your body can thin that blood. Number 4, libido. I came across this amazing question on Reddit, and I want to let this person know that whatever your libido is doing during your period, it is perfectly normal. There's several factors that I want to talk about that influence your libido. The first thing is your hormones. We've been talking so much about hormones because hormones are a huge reason why we have our periods at all, and they affect what our period does to our bodies. So the two big hormones that I want to talk about right now are progesterone and estrogen. When your progesterone is low and your estrogen is high, typically you have higher libido, more drive, more desire, you're easily turned on. Typically during your cycle, estrogen is highest around the time of ovulation. Ovulation is typically towards the middle of your cycle, around day 14, but not always exactly on day 14. Everybody's cycle is a little bit different. Estrogen fills your body with lots of energy, you feel really happy, your skin is literally glowing. Typically you have more libido or drive during this time. When progesterone levels are higher in our body, typically we feel a little more sluggish, a little more bloated, and kind of like, not as good about everything. And typically this makes our drive a little bit lower. For hormonal reasons, you might notice more drive during ovulation and maybe a little more drive when your progesterone dips right before your period. But hormones aren't the only thing that affect our drive. For me, I tend to be more turned on when I know that my body could make a baby. For some reason, it makes my brain be like, yes, let's do this, even if I'm not really ready to have a baby right now. But for some people, the thought of knowing that you could get pregnant at any time makes your libido go way down because you're terrified of everything that would mean because you are not ready to get pregnant. So during your time of menstruation, you know that there is little to no chance of getting pregnant. Therefore, you are really in the mood and really excited to have sex because there's no risk of pregnancy. Another factor is the amount of lubricant that your body is creating. Right before your period, you typically have more discharge, and when you have more discharge, it actually increases sensation, makes things feel really good during intercourse. So this might be another reason that during menstruation, you have increased libido or increased desire. If you know somebody else that could totally benefit from knowing all of these things about their period because they've been really worried that something is wrong or just confused about why their body is doing what they're doing, please like this video because believe it or not, YouTube will show it to more people every time one of you helps me out and hits that like button. The fifth and final question that I want to answer is the length of your period. What is a normal period? I'm using these normal quotes because normal is different for everyone. It's really based on what is normal for you. And the best thing that you can do is to track your cycle for a few months and kind of get a feel for how long is my period normally. As far as the length of a period, anything from 2 days to 8 days is perfectly normal. If you're noticing that your period is lasting longer than 8 days, this is another great time to talk to your provider about what might be going on, doing a little more testing to find out if everything is working the way it should be within your body. We do know that when people first start menstruating, it's very common for there to be a lot of variation. It's very sporadic. There's not as much normalcy to your period. And typically they can be a little bit longer, a little bit more intense because your hormones are kind of all over the board. But as we've been having periods for a few years, we should be noticing that there are some patterns to our period. They are more in that 2 to 8 day range, very predictable. Now, caveat to that, if you are taking or start taking a hormonal birth control, such as a birth control pill with hormones, a shot with hormones, have an IUD put in with hormones in it, typically your period is going to be a little bit on the shorter side. But if you use something like a copper IUD, it is more likely for you to have a longer period. So if you start a birth control, a great question to ask is, how is this going to affect my menstrual cycle so that you're not surprised when it is way longer or way shorter than you were expecting it to be? If you love learning about the way your body works and you're not afraid to be empowered with this information, I would love to have you subscribe to this channel because this is a safe place where we talk about all of those things. If you're specifically interested in periods, I highly recommend you check out this video over here. It's all about 10 different products that you could use while you're on your period, and neither of them are your typical pad or tampon. So I highly suggest you check out that next. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. It has been a total pleasure, and I will see you all in the next video.